It's a great pleasure to welcome to the program this week His Excellency Ambassador James Moran, head of the EU delegation Egypt. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador James Moran. Latvia's EU presidency coincides with the tragic terrorist attacks in France. Somebody said that the attacks were meant to bring France on its knees, but they've actually brought Europe on its feet. It is true, we have seen unprecedented European solidarity in the face of these attacks.
That's very true. I mean, the scenes coming from Paris yesterday with more than 1 million people. Nobody really knows how many. I think there were too many to count, frankly. But more than 1 million people, many French people, of course, there, but also from Europe and around the world. The Egyptian Foreign Minister himself also was there. More than 40 representatives of other countries, many of them leaders and heads of state, were there to join and show their solidarity against the common enemy of terrorism. This was uplifting, but at the end of the day, you know, have to be with these poor innocent people that have been killed, with their families, with their loved ones. One feels so sad for them. They died as total innocents. And of course, this is happening here in the region on a daily and weekly basis. I'm afraid there is, in a way, here in this part of the world, people have gotten perhaps more used to it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that whenever these things happen, whether it's in France, whether it's here in Egypt, whether it's in other parts of the region here, your thoughts have to be with the families at times like these.
Which leads us to think, should freedom of expression be limitless?
Freedom of expression is a fundamental value where I come from in Europe. It binds us together like nothing else. To be a member of the European Union, you have to have in your constitutional arrangements unqualified commitment to freedom of expression. Of course, I mean, there are naturally practicalities, and if people are using freedom of expression, abusing it for hate speech, radicalization, preaching violence and death to other people, there has, of course, to be practical arrangements to deal with that. But fundamentally, freedom of expression basically trumps everything else in Europe. I know that does cause difficulties for other countries and so on, but for us it's a fundamental.
And it will continue to be.
I desperately hope so. The image in Paris of the pencil that was placed on the statue of Liberté, I think it was, last night, the pencil for the cartoonist, I think was very, very resonant. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. If ever you compromise fundamentally your freedom of expression, then you're compromising the European idea. So that's our view. Now, we know that it isn't agreed by everybody else around the world, but for us it's absolutely fundamental.
Many are concerned about restrictions on visas for Arabs, and particularly Muslim Arabs. What can we expect? Well,
I don't think that that's going to happen. You mean in the aftermath of the Paris events? First of all, we have to remember, of course, that the terrorists who perpetrated these heinous acts were actually European nationals. They happen to be Muslims as well. But I don't think there's going to be any special restrictions brought in as a result of this, and it would be wrong. I think that it would. And I think some people have been blaming Islam for what is happening. This is wrong. It's not about Islam. Islam is a religion of love and of compassion at the end of the day.
You and I know this, but do all Europeans agree?
Well, of course, there is a lot of ignorance about Islam in Europe, just as there is ignorance of Christianity, for example, in parts of the Middle East. We need to do more work, all of us, on better understanding between us as far as that is concerned. But this is not about Islam. This is about something else. It's about radical extremism of a kind that we absolutely have to fight against, and we must do it together.
What can you tell us about the priorities for Latvia's presidency, and what does it mean for Egypt?
Well, I think on that one I'll defer, if I may, to my colleague, the Ambassador of Latvia, who can tell you more about that. The other thing I say is the first time this very exciting country, which joined the European Union just a few years ago, takes up that responsibility, and especially for the internal matters in Europe, it's going to be a very important time ahead.
Ambassador James Moran, EU Ambassador Egypt, thank you very much for joining us on the program this week. It's a pleasure to welcome Latvia's Ambassador to Egypt, Iveta Schultz. Many congratulations on Latvia's EU presidency, and thank you for joining us on the program. You called Latvia's EU presidency a challenge. Why?
This is a challenge country. Actually, in terms of the numbers of inhabitants, we are exactly 41 times smaller than Egypt. However, in terms of the GDP per capita, for example, we are 3 times bigger than this country. The challenge it is because we are a small country, we are a member of the European Union now already for 11 years, but it is the very, very first time when we will manage the agenda of the group of the states which is the strongest trade and economic group in the world.
What are the priorities of Latvia's EU presidency, and what will it offer Egypt?
The priorities of the EU presidency actually matches with the potential my country does have. For example, one of the priorities is creation of the energy union in the European Union. Today, many of the member states still depend on the energy imports. Latvia is one of the greenest countries in the world, and we are masters of managing our green resources already. For example, 1/3 of our energy resources are energy consumption we're getting from green energy. Today, the public transport in Latvia is the green public transport. It is the green buses, green trolleybuses, and of course the trams. Last but not least, this is a competitiveness and the creation of new jobs. After the financial crisis, many member states, and Latvia was not an exemption, we have to recover, and we need a strong industrial basis today. Actually, Latvia was the first EU member state which managed to overcome the financial crisis, which was severely, we were severely suffering 2008-2009. So we were the very first EU member state showing that through the consolidation, through the commitment and efficiency, we can overcome the financial crisis, we can stabilize our financial system, and the result was 2014 European Union. Last but not least, we are small, we are not rich, we don't have oil or other energy resources, but we have a nature and our people. We say we have the green gold and we have a white gold. And it is a key that we focus on the education exchange. This is why we are going to organize in Latvia the meeting of Asian ministers and EU ministers of education, and we want to foster the dialogue exactly in higher education. Last but not least, Egypt is very important to us in this regard as well. I've been ambassador to this country for 2 years, and I'm so happy to announce that we have signed already more than 9 cooperation agreements with your excellent universities. For example, I would like to mention the German University Cairo and the Technical University of Latvia agreement, which was signed recently.
And now that Latvia is president of the EU, what can it offer Egypt? What more?
What more? Actually, from one angle, it is a golden opportunity to market the country. As for many Egyptians, often when I say I'm ambassador of Latvia, they ask, Latvia, where is Latvia? And then I should always say we are size of Sinai, we are in North Europe, and look, we actually today leading in IT technologies. We have the fastest internet in Europe and the fourth fastest in the world. Look, we have very deep and excellent traditions and competitiveness in the transport sector, and we say, look, you are looking today for new railway systems, you are looking for new rail trains.